and gentlemen, welcome to the 2018 debut of the 10 Count. I'm Steve Kim, joined by Michael Montero and Doug Fischer. We're here to talk boxing, and it got started last weekend from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. It was showtime, and the IBF welterweight title is still held by Errol Spence, who bludgeoned Lamont Peterson in 7 rounds. Doug, first of all, love the T-shirt. Give us a preview of that bloody. That's bloody. Now, the question is very simple.
Errol Spence would like this.
Yeah, he would.
Right?
Yeah,
well,
appreciate that.
Errol Spence might be the next Golovkin, an action fighter that some people say has no skills, which is incomprehensible to me. But, Doug, did he make the case, a strong one, for being the world's best 147-pounder?
Yeah, absolutely. He made that case. And there are a lot of people on the Ring Magazine ratings panel who want to move him to the #1 spot, supplanting Keith Thurman, who was the Ring Magazine's current #1 rated 147-pounder. There are folks who want to move him up a spot in the pound-for-pound ratings. I look at it like this. In beating Lamont Peterson, he did what he was supposed to do. Peterson has had a long, grinding career. He's been inactive. He's getting into his mid-30s. He's probably his best days were at 140 pounds, and he wasn't known as a puncher at junior welterweight. So you kind of knew what was going to happen. I think everybody predicted a late-round stoppage for Errol Spence. Having said that, he looks perfect to me. I don't see any lack of skill there. I see skill. I see technique. I see timing. I see poise. I see patience. And I see a fighter's instincts. Like, he knows when his man is hurt, and he knows how to close the show. And had Barry Hunter not rightfully pulled the plug before the 8th round, we could have seen not only a spectacular knockout, but a scary knockout in either rounds 8 or 9.
I agree with all that. You know, one thing people didn't talk about with Lamont Peterson, he had never fought a full, true welterweight at the 147-pound
At least not
limit.
world class. There was David Avanesian, but he was more of a fringe contender.
He doesn't count.
Right.
And then the Danny Garcia fight, who's a natural junior welterweight, that was at 144, I believe,
yes,
the catchweight. So this is the first time he had fought a real welterweight. And Doug, I agree with everything you said. I wasn't surprised by what we saw with Spence, but I was really, really impressed. And I don't get the skillless thing. What's wrong with sitting down on your punches?
He got hit a few times.
Got hit a few times, but he knew what was coming back he could take. And what's wrong with sitting down on your punches? I think people see these Instagram shots of guys throwing 1,000 punches and moving their feet real fast. Sitting down on your punches and making every punch count, doing everything with intent, that is skill. That is skill.
And here's another thing. We got to look at his style. Now, he is a boxer. He is a technician, but he's a puncher.
Yep.
And he's also a volume puncher, which I appreciate. He's working for 3 minutes of every round. When you have that type of style and you're coming forward and you're forcing your opponent to exchange with you, you will get hit from time to time. That's boxing, people.
Well, the guy that he reminds me of, and I've heard a couple people say this is the next Ray Leonard. No, and I'm saying to myself, outside of both being African-American, there is there really is no similarity. And this is something I don't want to throw around lightly. I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. And you know I'm a big fan. There are some Marvin Hagler-esque tendencies with this young man because he's southpaw, he's a workman, and he has a tenacity, and every punch is thrown with a purpose, and he works high, low, left, right.
He's a brute, strong technician.
Yeah.
And what remains to be seen, and I think his whiskers are at least reliable. They're solid. Yeah. But it remains to be seen if he is as durable as Marvelous Marvin Hagler proved to be during his middleweight championship reign.
Right, and right now he has not faced a puncher. And looking at the overview of the division, the WBA title will be contested this Saturday night. Lucas Matisse fighting T-Rock Kiram for the vacant version of the belt. Keith Thurman, who he labeled sometimes, Errol Spence with the one-liner. And then you have the WBO title. I'll be honest, I don't want to be disrespectful. And when you say that, you're probably going to be disrespectful. But I think Jeff Horn is renting it out. I think Terence Crawford will soon be taking over that lease. Mike, I thought it was interesting that as of, let's say, 7-8 days ago, people were making the assumption that Terence Crawford, without having a single fight at 147, was already the best welterweight. I think that is really short shrifting Errol Spence in my view.
I totally agree. Errol Spence, his entire career has been at welterweight. For Crawford, he started as a lightweight, and people forget that. They think about 140. They forget this guy started at 135. We got to see how he looks against Jeff Horn. I agree with you that that WBO title is being rented out. He's going to have it. I think it's April. I can't the
14th.
Date, April 14th at MSG. I believe that fight will be right. He's going to hand that WBO title over, but we don't know how he's going to look against Jeff Horn, who is naturally bigger and physically stronger.
So you think it's difficult physically? You do.
We'll find out. I don't think so. I'm predicting Crawford to get a stoppage in that fight, but we won't know until we see him. That's why they fight the fights.
We should get a gauge of his power at 147 pounds. If he can get rid of Jeff Horn.
Well, remember, Pacquiao had him out on his feet,
round 9.
Right? And this is, Pacquiao's 900 years old right now, but still, if Crawford can get Horn out of there, punching up at a guy who's naturally bigger, then the welterweight division's on notice.
He's
awkward and physical.
Ordinary. Yeah, he's physical, but there's an awkwardness.
And there's a toughness to him, right?
He's Australian, man.
He's Australian. Those guys are pretty tough. But going back to what you were saying about the welterweight ratings, I think Thurman, you still by default have to call him number 1. He did unify titles. He's been around a little bit longer. He's fought more of the second tier opposition at welterweight than Spence has yet.
True.
But head to head, you got to favor Spence at this point.
Yeah, most people would.
I don't know. I just think based on inactivity and.
But there were injuries.
Right?
There were injuries.
But you're unifying against Danny Garcia, not Milton McCrory. Never mind Tommy Hearns or Donald Curry.
But to play devil's advocate. Kell Brook coming off a loss where his face was literally shattered, coming down 2 weight classes, way too quick in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then Peterson, that fight, to me, that was perfect matchmaking.
Well, that's why you have to fight that fight. I still think there's a lot of business to be had, but projecting forward, the fight that everyone wants to see, it is a bit of a dream match, would be Terence Crawford, should he beat Jeff Horn, make a couple of defenses, and then Errol Spence. I believe that the powers that be, and we know the players involved and their alliances, Doug, there should be a mandate within 12 to 18 months. You'll have time to marinate this.
Right.
But make this fight, or it's a failure on the sport.
That's true. That's true. Particularly if Showtime and Al Heyman and the people involved in the careers of Keith Thurman and Errol Spence can get them to fight by the end of this year or by the first quarter of 2019. You have a situation where we could have an undisputed champion if the winner of Spence Thurman fights Terence Crawford, who we expect to hold the WBO belt, or at least close to it, because there's still that WBA title floating around out there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Whoever wins that WBA title on Saturday, it's between Lucas Matisse and Tewa Kiram, I think they would be willing to fight a Spence, a Thurman, or a Terence Crawford, because those are huge fights for them. If you're Lucas Matisse, you're 35 years old. You want to make your last paydays. You want to have a shot at greatness. If you're Kiram, you'll fight anybody. You don't care. I came to America to make my name.
That's life-changing.
Right. First of all, if he upsets Matisse, which is not out of the realm of possibility, he's a new face. But he's 25 years old. He's young. He's hungry. He's still kind of unknown in the United States. He would love a shot at an Errol Spence or a Keith Thurman or a Terence Crawford. So I think we can get these belts together, but it's just that last piece, the Bob Arum, ESPN-aligned Terence Crawford doing business with somebody who's aligned either with Showtime or HBO, Golden Boy or Bob Arum.
Yeah, and going back to Errol Spence, last year only had 1 fight, and that was on Eddie Hearn's dime, the title-winning performance in Sheffield against Kell Brook. I would say at the very least, Mike, in 2018, I believe he's going to fight in June. That fight might be announced by Showtime as we tape this in a couple of hours. That leaves room, I think, for a 3rd fight. At the very least, that is what needs to happen for Errol Spence, a little bit more activity.
I agree with you. He's Carlos Ocampo is at IBF mandatory now, right? That's just been mandated. That fight should happen in June in Dallas. Start to build a brand down there in Dallas. That is a growing boxing market, and there's some hot gyms down there.
Up in Brooklyn.
It probably will, and that's a
You mean the Barclays Center?
Yes.
We'll see.
There's a deal there that's, you know, there's some money involved. But if I had it my way, I think what they should do is do that mandatory fight in Dallas. That fight might last 2 or 3 rounds. Maybe it'll go longer. But even if it only goes a few rounds.
One of the Charlos in the co-feature.
Exactly. I remember here at the Forum when Golovkin fought mandatory Dominic Wade. It went, what, 2 rounds? Yeah. Nobody in the crowd cared. No. They got what they wanted. So do that fight in Dallas. And then bring them back in the fall. Maybe in November, go to Barclays, go to Showtime so you get that guaranteed money, and put them in the co-main on a Keith Thurman card and build up that fight for next spring. That's the way it should be done.
So there you have it. Errol Spence dominates Lamont Peterson in making a statement. That's it for 10 Count. On behalf of Doug Fischer and Michael Montero, this is Steve Kim saying goodbye, everybody.